President Trump is reportedly considering very strong options as protests in Iran enter their third week. But what does this statement actually mean? And how could it affect a country already under significant pressure? While the world focuses on potential military strategies, an unexpected detail changes the perspective entirely. Access to information in Iran is heavily restricted, making satellite networks like Starlink a critical tool for understanding what's really happening. What exactly could the U.S. administration do in this context, and how do both local and global factors influence the course of these protests? Let's explore all of this in the next few minutes. Let's start with the core tension, the intersection of domestic unrest in Iran and U.S. policy. According to publicly available sources, protests in Iran began over economic challenges, including the sharp decline in the local currency, but quickly evolved into a broader debate about the legitimacy of the ruling government. The U.S.-based human rights activist news agency, Shirana, has reportedly verified significant numbers of arrests and casualties, though media reports emphasize that precise information is difficult to confirm due to internet restrictions. President Trump reportedly stated that Iranian officials have reached out to negotiate, while also suggesting that action could occur before a formal meeting. This creates a dynamic and unpredictable international situation. But could these U.S. options really involve direct military action? Or is there a spectrum of strategies that might influence the situation without escalating conflict? Stay tuned, because the next segment reveals details most sources don't immediately highlight. According to sources, the U.S. has reportedly considered multiple approaches: boosting independent information channels within Iran, cyber tools targeting military or logistical infrastructure, and additional economic measures like sanctions. The protests themselves reportedly continue, though at a slightly reduced intensity, highlighting the complex interaction between grassroots movements and government responses. Restrictions on internet access have intensified, making satellite connections like Starlink increasingly vital for citizens to obtain reliable updates. Here's the twist. While global media coverage relies on fragmented reports, Iranians on the ground are using innovative workarounds to stay connected. How does this change both the public perception and international response? We'll dive into that next. Satellite internet, like SpaceX's Starlink, reportedly plays a crucial role in allowing Iranians to bypass government restrictions. President Trump mentioned plans to discuss restoring internet access with Elon Musk, highlighting how technology intersects with international policy. Publicly available information suggests that communication blackouts make verifying events difficult, emphasizing the importance of multiple independent sources to understand the situation responsibly. Analysts note that information flow is not just a local issue. How the world sees these protests can influence diplomatic responses, international media coverage, and even potential negotiations between countries. Could restoring internet access shift the balance of information and potentially change how both governments and citizens act? Keep watching, because the next section explores the wider geopolitical implications. Economic and social pressures reportedly triggered the initial protests, but publicly available reports suggest that the unrest has broader implications for the legitimacy of Iran's leadership. Statements from exiled figures like Reza Pahlavi emphasize that the protests are seen by some as shaking the foundations of the government, creating a highly complex internal political environment. Internationally, U.S. officials have reportedly briefed on various military and non-military strategies, but publicly, no formal plans have been detailed, keeping the situation highly fluid. What does it mean for global stability when multiple strategies are on the table, yet so much remains unverified? Up next, we'll break down the potential international ripple effects. Publicly available reports indicate that Iranian leadership has called for supporters to join pro-government demonstrations, while the government has also announced official periods of mourning, framing events in a political and symbolic context. Analysts say that framing and messaging are central to maintaining authority, while also influencing international perception. For viewers outside Iran, understanding these symbolic actions helps contextualize why certain responses occur domestically and how media reports abroad may reflect partial views of complex realities. But how do symbolic actions inside Iran interact with real-world international strategies? The next segment explores the interplay between local protests and global policy decisions. According to publicly available sources, one of the key questions is whether U.S. actions could escalate tensions or remain largely informational and strategic. Potential options reportedly include cyber operations, enhanced sanctions, or support for independent media channels inside Iran. Analysts emphasize that any action, direct or indirect, would have to consider regional stability, the reactions of neighboring countries, and long-term diplomatic consequences. For viewers trying to make sense of complex reports, it's important to note that much of the information is based on reportedly, or according to sources, reflecting both the uncertainty on the ground and responsible journalism practices. How do policymakers balance the need to respond with the risks of escalation? In the next segment, we'll break down why these decisions are not just political, but also strategic and technological. Satellite communications have reportedly allowed citizens to share information globally, providing a unique perspective on local events that otherwise remain unverified. Experts note that maintaining communication channels can shape the narrative both domestically and internationally, influencing public opinion and diplomatic strategy. Importantly, these networks allow for a more nuanced understanding of the situation, moving beyond sensational headlines toward verified insights. Could improved communication and information flow actually reduce tension rather than increase it? Let's explore how technology and diplomacy intersect in the next section. Public statements from international figures, including exiled leaders and government officials, reportedly highlight the uncertainty of the current situation. They emphasize dialogue, negotiation, and observation as primary tools before any action is taken. Analysts suggest that understanding Iran's internal social dynamics is crucial, as local protests are not solely about policy, but also about public sentiment, economic pressure, and political legitimacy. For viewers following the story, it's key to see both the global and local perspectives, understanding how they interact to create the complex scenario unfolding today. What could the next few weeks bring? And how might international actors respond? We'll cover potential scenarios responsibly in the upcoming segment. Looking ahead, publicly available sources suggest that multiple scenarios could unfold depending on both internal and external factors. The trajectory of the protests, economic pressures, and international diplomatic responses all play a role. Analysts reportedly emphasize that while military options are discussed, indirect strategies such as diplomatic engagement, sanctions, and supporting communication networks may have longer-term influence without escalating conflict. For viewers, this highlights the importance of understanding complex systems. Actions taken by one actor can ripple across local, regional, and global dynamics. According to sources, the Iranian government has reportedly organized official demonstrations and symbolic events to reinforce authority. Such actions, while ceremonial, carry political weight both domestically and internationally. Experts note that understanding these symbolic actions helps contextualize why certain government responses occur and how they are interpreted abroad. What role does perception, both within Iran and internationally, play in shaping potential U.S. responses? Let's explore the interplay between information, diplomacy, and strategy next. Communication channels, including satellite and proxy internet, reportedly play a critical role in how citizens and the international community perceive events. Analysts point out that maintaining independent sources of information can influence negotiations, policy decisions, and the international response without resorting to escalatory measures. For viewers, this demonstrates the value of informed reporting and careful analysis, rather than relying solely on sensationalized headlines. Could technology and information actually stabilize tensions rather than exacerbate them? In the next section, we'll look at potential ripple effects globally. In conclusion, the developments in Iran demonstrate how local social movements, government responses, and international strategies interact in complex ways. While military options are sometimes mentioned in media reports, analysts reportedly emphasize that diplomacy, information flow, and economic measures often play a more decisive role in shaping outcomes over time. As these events continue to unfold, it's important to stay informed responsibly.